Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. We begin this hour with the Russian-linked cyber attack that experts are calling a, quote, grave risk to government agencies, infrastructure, and the private sector. Bloomberg News reports that at least 3 state governments were hacked, and the U.S. Nuclear Weapons Agency, too. Microsoft also says its systems were exposed, and so far, no word yet from the White House on the hack. That drawing concern from lawmakers.
A cyber hack of this nature is really the modern equivalent of almost of Russian bombers reportedly flying undetected over the entire country. And they didn't drop bombs, but they had the capacity to show that our defense is extraordinarily inadequate.
For more on this story, I'm joined by Bloomberg News cybersecurity reporter William Turton. William, it's great to have you back with us. Just how bad were these attacks? How do you explain the risk to viewers trying to wrap their heads around what exactly happened?
Hi, thanks for having me. So that's a great question. We don't know how bad it is, and it will probably take a long time to find out how bad it is. We're getting a little bit of idea about the scale and the scope of the attack, right? So we know from an SEC filing by one of these affected companies, SolarWinds, that a malicious backdoor sent to customers through its products affected as many as 18,000 customers. Now, there's something really important to remember here, which is that, just because as many as 18,000 customers had this backdoor in their network doesn't mean the Russian hackers actually used it to kind of go deeper and hack the network. The best number we have so far was released by Microsoft last night, where they said they're aware of 40 of their customers that have been compromised, but they expect that number to rise.
So what do we know about what they actually had access to at this point? Because it's so widespread, what were they actually looking for?
So that's another good question, and one we really don't have an answer to yet. I mean, the assumption right now is that this was an act of espionage. And people make that assumption because, as far as we can tell so far, there weren't any kind of destructive acts, right? Like data wasn't deleted. It wasn't like computers were shut down or taken offline, right? It seems like for months, these Russian hackers were sitting inside government networks and the network of private companies and listening and collecting data. Now, I really have to stress, we don't know if data was actually exfiltrated yet.
The part that I think really concerns a lot of people is the element of the U.S. Nuclear Weapons Agency, the Department of Energy, and the organization responsible for the stockpile of nuclear weapons in this country. Do we know what hackers got access to with regard to that agency?
Nope, we don't.
Wow.
Some U.S. officials have said that, it's their understanding so far that classified information has not been accessed in general, right? But we're going to have to see if that actually pans out and remains true. That said, even if you didn't have access to classified information, just in theory, right? Think about the access to these various federal agencies. Think about the Pentagon, the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, even having the unclassified data, think about the emails from all the employees there. I mean, that is hugely valuable and insightful.
We have not heard from President Trump on this attack. What does his silence mean?
It's a great question. Trump has this almost ridiculous tweet from 2017 where he said that he talked about, talking with Putin about forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit. Trump hasn't really shown much literacy in the cyber domain. He's talked about 300-pound hackers in basements before. But, as we've seen throughout his campaign and through his administration, that he's happy to defer to Russia. I'm not sure how much you can read into his silence.
William, as a cybersecurity reporter, where does this particular hack fall on the spectrum of infiltrations and hacks that you've covered?
It's probably the craziest hack I've ever covered.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It might just be the hack of the decade, frankly. I mean, there's multiple things. The complexity and the level of tradecraft used by the Russian hackers, I mean, one could assume that this took years to plan. And just how far they got and how long they went undetected for, I mean, we think they went, this started in at least March and was only discovered, last week. Yeah, I mean, just the kind of consequences and implications are mind-boggling. And the fact that the U.S. government was caught completely flat-footed, right? It was a private company, FireEye, that discovered this, not the NSA, not any of the other intelligence agencies. I mean, that part is really remarkable, too.
Wow, strong words. William Turton, the hack of the decade, really putting it into perspective for us today. William, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us on Quick Take. William is Bloomberg News cybersecurity reporter.